They will never hand you respect, not when you are broke, not when you are nameless, not when you have nothing to offer but your presence. Respect is not given, it is taken. If you sit waiting for approval, you'll rot in silence, forgotten before your name is even spoken. But if you move with precision, if you sharpen your nothingness into presence, they will feel it, they will hesitate, they will bow. This is the first truth you must swallow. The world doesn't admire kindness. It exploits it. It doesn't reward humility. It tramples it. Men respect only leverage, fear wrapped in composure, strength hidden behind silence. That's why when you stand with nothing, you must weaponize the one thing left to you, your aura. You must train your body to move with stillness, your voice to cut with certainty, your gaze to pierce without effort. Understand, Machiavelli wrote that men are ruled by fear or by need. If they do not need you and they do not fear losing you, they will discard you. That is the brutal law. So you must learn to radiate the opposite of need. You must become the one who never chases, never explains, never lowers his head. Even when you stand at zero, you project as though you already own the room. That illusion alone is enough to disturb the weak and unsettle the powerful. Now I want you to declare yourself. Comment below a phrase that says, "You will never beg again." A phrase that cuts. A phrase that commands. Show me your law of respect. Number 1. The cold foundation. Respect begins with how they see you, not who you are. Men don't look into your heart. They scan for weakness. They measure advantage. They want to know, can I ignore this man? Can I use him? Can I dominate him? If the answer is yes, you've already lost. The cold foundation of power is this. Never give them proof of your desperation. Never signal need. The moment you reveal you want their approval, you've placed yourself beneath them. They own you without lifting a finger. That is why your first weapon is indifference. You must master the art of appearing untouchable, of acting as if nothing they give or take can alter your posture. When you walk into a room, you are judged before you speak. Your words matter less than your stillness. Your smile matters less than your silence. Weak men try to win attention with noise, with jokes, with forced charm. Strong men win respect with restraint. A calm gaze unsettles more than 1,000 words. A controlled silence weighs more than an outburst. The less you reveal, the more they imagine. And imagination is dangerous. It fills the gaps with fear, with respect, with uncertainty. This is the power of absence. Show little, say little, move little, and the world will build myths about you. They will project strength onto your silence, depth onto your calm, danger onto your restraint. Mystery is leverage. The unknown commands more respect than the obvious. And here lies the paradox. When you have nothing, your emptiness can be reshaped into a mask of power. People fear what they cannot read. They hesitate before what they cannot predict. And hesitation, that single moment of doubt, is all the respect you need to begin shifting the balance. Machiavelli's wisdom echoes here. Appearance outweighs truth. Men act not on what is, but on what seems. If you appear strong, they treat you as strong. If you appear indifferent, they chase your attention. If you appear immovable, they stop trying to move you. This is not deception, it is survival. It is strategy. Discipline is the stone beneath this foundation. Discipline in your posture, discipline in your words, discipline in your emotions. Never reveal the storm inside. Never let your face betray hunger. The world must see you as unshakable granite. If you master this, even without wealth, even without status, you will radiate a presence they cannot ignore. Now, it is your turn to carve this foundation into yourself. Comment below a phrase that represents your indifference to weakness, your refusal to chase. A phrase that says, I do not bow, I do not beg, I do not break. Declare it and make it yours. Number 2, the silent threat. Respect without consequence is nothing. You can be liked, you can be tolerated, but unless people sense that there is a price for disrespect, they will never treat you as untouchable. The man who is harmless, the man who poses no threat, He is invisible in the hierarchy of power. And invisibility is death to respect. Think about it. When you see a man who cannot fight, cannot defend, cannot stand alone, do you fear him? Do you admire him? Or do you simply ignore him? The world does the same to you. It does not reward harmlessness. It exploits it. Respect is only given to those who carry the shadow of consequence, the aura of danger, the weight of restraint. That is what I call the silent threat. The silent threat is not loud. It does not announce itself. It does not scream, beg, or wave its arms. It is subtle. It is cold. It is in the way you hold your gaze 1 second too long. It is in the calmness of your tone when everyone else raises their voice. It is in your refusal to react when they try to provoke you. That stillness creates unease, and unease creates respect. Understand this. People constantly test boundaries. They do it with small jokes, with disrespect disguised as humor, with dismissals that seem harmless. They want to see if you will flinch, if you will defend yourself, if you will scramble to prove your worth. That is where most men fail. They explain themselves, they argue, they beg for clarity. But the man who understands the silent threat does none of these. He stands calm. He lets the silence choke the room. He watches as the weight of his stillness crushes their attempt at mockery. Here's the psychology. He who reacts first loses. Reaction is confession. If you defend yourself, you confess weakness. If you lash out, you confess insecurity. But if you remain unmoved, your enemy is forced to react. They become uncomfortable with their own words. They expose their own weakness. You turn their test back onto them, and they fail. Picture two men in conflict. One shouts, points, raises his voice, threatens. The other remains still, eyes steady, arms folded, silence unbroken. Who is feared? Who holds control? The loud one shows his cards. The silent one hides his hand. He creates uncertainty, and uncertainty is more dangerous than any weapon because people cannot defend against what they cannot predict. Machiavelli understood this when he said it is safer to be feared than loved. Fear is not always violence. Fear is not always blood. Fear can be subtle, refined, invisible. Fear can live in silence. The man who says nothing yet radiates power is far more dangerous than the man who threatens with words. Words are cheap. Silence is expensive. To master the silent threat, you must first master yourself. You cannot control others until you control your own reactions. You must strip yourself of the need to be understood, the need to explain, the need to prove. You must become immune to insult. Insults mean nothing when you know your worth. Mockery means nothing when you know your presence is stronger than their words. This is not suppression, it is dominance. It is owning your emotions instead of letting your emotions own you. There is a deeper layer. The silent threat is not just about intimidation, it is about commanding the subconscious. Humans are wired to fear the unknown. When they cannot read you, they begin to imagine. They ask themselves, what is he capable of? Why is he so calm? Why doesn't he flinch? And in that questioning, they elevate you. They project strength onto you. They respect what they cannot measure. This is why restraint is stronger than aggression. Anyone can lose control. Anyone can shout. Few can remain unshaken while chaos burns around them. If you can, you become a pillar, and men respect the pillar more than the flame. Do not confuse this with weakness. The silent threat does not mean doing nothing. It means doing less, but meaning more. It means speaking with precision, not excess. It means acting only when necessary, but making sure when you act. It ends everything. If they doubt you, let them. If they test you, let them. But when the line is crossed, when patience ends, your response must be final. That is how the silent threat maintains its credibility. Without teeth, silence is nothing. With teeth, silence is unbearable. So here is your task. Cultivate stillness. Train your body to remain calm under pressure. Train your voice to hold steady when challenged. Train your face to reveal nothing, no matter what storm rages inside. This discipline is the foundation of untouchable power. The man who cannot be moved is the man who cannot be ignored. Now it is your turn to speak in shadows. Comment below with a phrase that represents your silent threat. Not rage, not noise, but presence. Write something that says, "My calm is not weakness. My silence is not emptiness. My stillness is a warning." Etch it in words. Show the world you are no longer harmless. Number 3, the mask of indifference. Respect is not only won through power, it is maintained through control. And the greatest display of control is indifference. To master indifference is to wear a mask that no one can pierce. It is to present yourself as untouchable, unbothered, above the storms of petty men. When you wear the mask of indifference, you strip your enemies of their weapon, reaction. Consider this. Most people live in chains of emotion. They are triggered by insults, lured by praise, manipulated by attention. They crave validation like addicts crave a fix. When you withhold your reaction, you deny the world its control over you. You become unreadable, and unreadable men are dangerous. People cannot manipulate what they cannot predict. They cannot control what they cannot move. This is the mask of indifference. Not true apathy, because you still calculate, you still plan, you still play the game. But outwardly, you reveal nothing. You appear unshaken by victory, unbroken by defeat. Praise does not inflate you. Criticism does not wound you. You are steady, cold, unreachable. And in that coldness, you rise above. Understand this carefully. Humans are wired to seek reaction. They insult to see you flinch. They flatter to see you glow. They provoke to see you break. Every reaction you give is power transferred from you to them. The mask of indifference cuts off that transfer. You stand as stone. You refuse to feed their hunger. And slowly they begin to respect you. Not because they want to, but because they cannot move you. Think of history's most dangerous leaders. The generals, the emperors, the conquerors. They did not reveal themselves easily. Their faces were masks, their words calculated, their reactions measured. Indifference was their armor, and their enemies hated it because it denied them control. You must become the same. Learn to wear a mask that protects you in every interaction. This mask does not mean you feel nothing. It means you show nothing. Inside, you may calculate, plot, analyze, but on the surface, you are ice. You are immovable. You are untouchable. That illusion is enough to command respect. Why? Because men respect control. They see control as power, and they know the man who controls himself is capable of controlling others. Here is the Machiavellian twist. Indifference is not only a shield, it is a weapon. When others fight for your attention and you withhold it, your value multiplies. The less you give, the more they want. This is not just psychology, it is economics. Scarcity creates value, and your indifference makes your presence scarce. That scarcity turns you into a prize. Dark psychology reveals another truth. Indifference unsettles the insecure. When someone tries to provoke you and you show no response, they feel small. When they try to impress you and you remain unimpressed, they feel weak. In their minds, you rise above them. You flip the power dynamic. You become the one they seek approval from. But indifference is not laziness. It is discipline. It is calculated silence, calculated restraint, calculated detachment. You must practice it. You must learn to pause before reacting, to breathe before speaking, to hold still when insulted. You must learn to hear laughter, feel exclusion, sense disrespect, and give them nothing. Nothing is the sharpest weapon you have. Let me give you an image. Imagine a wolf surrounded by barking dogs. The dogs snarl, they bite, they circle. The wolf does not bark back. He does not run. He does not flinch. He waits, cold eyes scanning, still, calculating. And because he does not react, the dogs grow nervous. Their barking grows hollow. They sense danger in his calm. That is the mask of indifference. That is how you win respect when surrounded by noise. Indifference also protects your energy. Most men waste themselves on petty battles, arguments, gossip, meaningless disputes. They fight for scraps of recognition. You will not. You will conserve your strength. You will pick battles worth fighting, and for the rest, you will remain indifferent. This not only saves your power, it multiplies it, because while others burn themselves out, you remain sharp, ready, unbroken. Machiavelli taught that appearances control men more than reality, and the appearance of indifference makes you untouchable. When people see that they cannot sway you with praise or crush you with insult, they conclude that you are above them. They may hate you, they may envy you, but they will respect you, because in a world of desperate men, the man who needs nothing is king. Now let me be clear, indifference is not the same as weakness. Weakness retreats, weakness avoids, weakness hides. Indifference faces everything head-on, but with no emotional surrender. It does not run, it does not care, and that distinction is everything. Weakness loses respect, indifference commands it. So here is your training. Wear the mask daily. When they insult you, hold silence. When they praise you, nod without reaction. When they provoke you, stand calm. Practice it until it becomes your second nature. Do not give them your emotions. Guard them like treasure. For the man who controls his emotions controls his fate. And now, it is time for you to speak. Comment below with a phrase that represents your mask. A phrase that says, I do not chase, I do not kneel, I do not break. Mark yourself with words that carry the weight of indifference. Let the world see that you are learning to wear the mask. Number 4, the power of distance. Power is not always in closeness. In fact, the most feared men are rarely the most accessible. Distance creates weight. Distance creates mystery. And distance creates respect. The man who is everywhere, available to everyone, at every moment, loses value. He becomes ordinary. But the man who withdraws, who limits himself, who makes himself scarce, he becomes a figure of power. Consider this truth. The more they see you, the less they value you. Familiarity breeds contempt. It is human nature. When something is always present, it is taken for granted. When it is rare, it is desired. This applies to objects, to status, to people, and especially to men who seek respect. The moment you make yourself too available, you dilute your worth. But the moment you pull back, you become scarce, and scarcity builds demand. This is the power of distance. It allows you to magnify your presence by reducing it. A single word spoken after long silence carries more weight than 1,000 sentences poured into empty air. A single appearance after a long absence commands more attention than endless presence. By retreating, you multiply your force. By withdrawing, you heighten your impact. Machiavelli knew this when he warned rulers never to let their presence become common. Kings do not walk among peasants daily, because constant exposure destroys majesty. Mystique is built on limitation. Authority is maintained through distance. And you, if you want respect, must learn to carry yourself as if your time, your presence, your attention are luxuries few can afford. But distance is not just physical, it is psychological. Emotional distance is even more powerful. When men insult you, distance keeps you calm. Their words cannot penetrate. When women test you, distance makes you unpredictable. They cannot own you. When society tries to drag you into noise, distance gives you clarity. You are no longer bound by their emotions. You remain untouchable because you are unreachable. This is where most men collapse. They crave closeness. They crave being understood. They crave being accepted. But the more they chase it, the more they lose respect. Neediness kills presence. Indifference, combined with distance, creates authority. You must train yourself to walk away easily, to detach quickly, to disappear without hesitation. Your absence should be felt as strongly as your presence. Think of the generals who vanish before battle, only to reappear at the perfect moment. Think of the leaders who remain unseen for weeks, then emerge with words that shift nations. Their scarcity makes their presence legendary. You must do the same. Do not speak on every matter. Do not join every conversation. Do not reveal your thoughts at every chance. When you hold back, when you save your words, when you create space, you make your voice heavier when you finally choose to speak. Distance also disarms your enemies. A rival who wants to provoke you cannot succeed if you remain out of reach. A manipulator who thrives on your attention starves when you withdraw. By creating space, you deny them leverage. You force them to chase while you conserve your energy, and the one who is chased always has more power than the one who chases. But here is the warning. Distance must be controlled. If you vanish too much, you risk irrelevance. If you withdraw without purpose, you risk being forgotten. Distance is a weapon only when used with calculation. Retreat to build mystery, not to escape. Pull back to increase your value, not to hide your weakness. The balance is key. Too much closeness breeds contempt. Too much absence breeds indifference. Walk the razor's edge between the two. Dark psychology teaches that uncertainty is one of the most powerful triggers of respect. When they cannot predict when you will appear, when they cannot guess what you will say, when they cannot anticipate your moves, they fear you. They prepare for you even when you are absent. They rehearse their words as if you might arrive at any moment. You dominate their minds not by constant presence, but by strategic absence. That is true control. You must also understand the emotional dimension of distance. When they insult you, distance denies them satisfaction. When they flatter you, distance denies them control. When they demand your energy, distance denies them access. Each denial builds your value higher. You become the man who cannot be summoned, the man who cannot be owned, the man who cannot be drained. That is the foundation of respect. Self-possession, to the point where others must work for even a fraction of your attention. Think of a candle. A flame that burns constantly loses its brilliance, but a flame glimpsed rarely burns into memory. That is what you must become, not an endless fire that everyone ignores, but a rare flame that burns into their minds. Your power is not in how often they see you, but in how deeply they feel your absence. Distance also sharpens your own strength. When you withdraw, you conserve energy, you reflect, you sharpen your mind. Men who drown in constant noise lose themselves. Men who embrace distance find themselves. Power requires clarity, and clarity requires space. Withdraw to build yourself, then re-enter the world with sharpened edges. That cycle makes you unstoppable. Now, let me give you a command. Stop being available to everyone. Stop chasing conversations. Stop explaining yourself. Withdraw. Create space. Let them wonder where you are, what you are doing, what you are thinking. Let them feel your absence as a pressure. Then, when you choose to appear, every eye will turn to you. Every ear will listen. Every voice will quiet. That is the power of distance. Comment below with a phrase that declares your command of distance. Something that says, my absence has weight. My silence has power. My distance is my crown. Write it. Mark yourself with it. And remember this, respect is not just about how they see you when you are present. It is about how they feel you when you are gone. Number 5, the law of scarcity. Power bends to scarcity. This is a law older than empires, older than kings, older than Machiavelli himself. What is rare is valued. What is common is discarded. The moment you understand this truth, you will see why most men are ignored. They give themselves away too freely. They throw their time, their energy, their words, their loyalty at anyone who asks. And in doing so, they strip themselves of value. Look at the world around you. Gold is valuable because it is scarce. Diamonds are worshipped because they are rare. The things men cannot easily have, they kill for. The things men can have at will, they treat with contempt. Why would respect be any different? If you make yourself too accessible, you become the human equivalent of cheap metal, common, replaceable, forgotten. The law of scarcity demands discipline. It demands that you withhold, that you ration your presence, that you place a price on yourself, not with words, but with behavior. It is not enough to say, "I value myself." You must live it. You must show through your actions that you are not to be accessed casually, that your time is not free, that your attention is a rare currency. Only then will people treat you as valuable. Understand this: respect is directly tied to cost. If they must sacrifice nothing to gain your time, your presence, your loyalty, they will sacrifice nothing to lose it. You are disposable in their eyes. But if you demand a cost, if you force them to earn access, if you make them work for your approval, then losing you becomes a wound they fear. Scarcity creates demand, and demand creates respect. Machiavelli would tell rulers never to let themselves be seen as cheap, never to hand out favors carelessly, never to dilute their power with generosity. Why? Because power comes from perception, and perception comes from scarcity. The prince who is seen too often becomes common. The prince who gives too much loses authority. The man who is always available loses respect. Now, dark psychology sharpens this point. People are addicted to what they cannot fully possess. Scarcity builds obsession. If you give them too much of yourself, they stop chasing. If you give them only fragments, they crave more. That craving is the root of control. You must learn to create it in every relationship. Appear briefly, speak rarely, give less than expected, and vanish before they are satisfied. This pattern leaves them hungry. Hungry men respect the source of their hunger. But beware, scarcity is not neglect. Neglect means you are forgotten. Scarcity means you are unforgettable because of your absence. It is a calculated withdrawal, a deliberate reduction, a tactical limitation. You must control how much of yourself you reveal, not because you fear them, but because you understand that too much access destroys value. A king does not walk in every marketplace. A general does not dine with every soldier. Their scarcity preserves their status. Yours will too. The law of scarcity extends beyond presence. It applies to words. The man who speaks endlessly is ignored. The man who speaks rarely is listened to. It applies to emotions. The man who reveals everything is dismissed. The man who reveals little is studied. It applies to approval. The man who praises everyone loses weight. The man who praises rarely makes his praise a prize. In every dimension of life, scarcity magnifies power. Think of it like this. If you eat sugar every day, it loses meaning. But if you taste it only once in a while, it explodes with significance. The same is true with your presence. Do not let them consume you daily. Do not let them grow numb to you. Condition them to feel the impact of your every appearance. Now, let's speak of relationships. Men lose respect in relationships because they flood their women with constant attention. They think generosity buys loyalty. It does not. Scarcity buys loyalty. Mystery buys loyalty. When you give endlessly, you suffocate value. When you hold back, when you remain a puzzle, when you leave space for craving, you ignite respect. This does not mean you play games. It means you understand the law. Humans respect scarcity more than abundance. Your enemies too can be controlled through scarcity. Reveal less of your plans. Withhold your intentions. Give them only fragments of who you are. Let them try to guess, try to predict, try to fill in the blanks. Their guesses will be wrong, and in that fog you remain superior. Scarcity is not only about attention, it is about information. Do not let them read your map. Keep them in the dark. Darkness itself is scarcity, and it builds fear. But listen carefully. Scarcity requires consistency. You cannot withhold once, then flood tomorrow. You must craft a persona that is disciplined, measured, deliberate. The world must know this man does not give himself freely. His presence is rare, his attention is scarce, his approval is expensive. They will adjust their behavior to match your value. This law is universal. Apply it everywhere. In your family, your work, your friendships, your enemies, your relationships. Become the man who is not easily reached. Become the man who is not easily understood. Become the man who is not easily possessed. Scarcity is your armor and your crown. Now I command you, look at your life and ask, where have I made myself too available? Where have I given too much? Where have I lowered my value by flooding others with my presence? Then cut it back. Withdraw, pull away, create space, make them feel your absence. Let them miss what they once took for granted. When they feel the cost of losing you, they will respect you. Comment below with a phrase that declares your scarcity, something sharp, something cold, something that tells the world, my time is rare, my presence is valuable, my attention is earned. Write it, mark yourself with it, and never forget the law. Scarcity is respect. Part 7. The weapon of fear. Fear is older than love. Fear is older than respect. Fear is the first law written into the human nervous system. Long before men worshipped gods, long before they bowed to kings, they bowed to fear. And if you want to be respected, truly, unshakably respected, you must understand fear and you must learn to wield it. Now hear this clearly. I am not talking about chaos. I'm not talking about being reckless, violent, or unhinged. That is the behavior of fools who mistake noise for power. True fear is quiet. True fear is calculated. True fear is carried like a blade hidden beneath your cloak, unseen but always present. Men who wave swords wildly are predictable. Men who keep theirs sheathed until the perfect moment are terrifying. Why is fear so powerful? Because it bypasses logic. Love can fade, admiration can change, but fear roots itself in survival. When they fear you, not because you are cruel, but because you are capable, they begin to respect boundaries they would never respect otherwise. It is the survival instinct working in your favor. They do not have to like you. They do not have to love you. They simply have to believe that crossing you carries a cost too heavy to pay. Machiavelli wrote, "It is much safer to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." He understood the truth. Love is fragile. Love depends on constant approval, constant maintenance, constant gifts. Fear is stable. Fear requires only one thing, that they never forget what you are capable of. Once fear is planted, it grows on its own. It polices behavior. It enforces boundaries. It protects respect like iron walls. But fear must be wielded with precision. Too little, and they grow bold. Too much, and they grow desperate. The art is in balance. You do not terrify everyone openly. You let the shadow of your strength linger. You let them wonder, what happens if I cross him? The not knowing is what binds them. Mystery amplifies fear, and silence sharpens it. Think of a storm on the horizon. You don't know if it will strike, but you know it could. That uncertainty makes you respect its power. You close your windows, you prepare your defenses, you wait. That is how your presence should feel. Not reckless chaos, but controlled potential. They must always feel that you are capable of ending things swiftly, decisively, absolutely, yet you choose restraint. That choice is what makes fear work. This brings us to one of the deepest truths. Respect is born from fear of loss. If they believe they can mock you without consequence, you are finished. If they believe they can betray you without punishment, you are finished. But if they believe losing you is costly or crossing you invites destruction, they will tread carefully. That carefulness is respect in action. Fear must also be personalized. Some men fear violence, others fear humiliation, others fear exclusion. You must learn what each man values and show, without words, that you can take it from him. You don't have to do it. You just have to let him know you could. That knowledge alone bends his behavior. This is not cruelty. This is strategy. It is how the strong survive in a world that preys on the weak. Dark psychology reveals something unsettling. People admire those they fear. They may never admit it, but they do. Why? Because fear and respect intertwine. A man capable of inspiring fear is seen as powerful, and power is respected, even by enemies, especially by enemies. Your rivals will despise you, but they will not dismiss you if they fear you. That is the paradox. Fear creates a form of respect deeper than affection ever could. So how do you build this weapon into yourself? First, discipline. Fear comes from restraint, not from explosions. You must remain calm when others are enraged. You must remain still when others are erratic. You must show that your emotions are never the master. That composure is intimidating. They know if he does not break under pressure, what else is he capable of? Second, boundaries. Enforce them with steel. When someone disrespects you, you do not laugh it off. You do not shrug. You act coldly, decisively, without hesitation. It may be silence. It may be exclusion. It may be distance, but they must feel consequence. Teach them that disrespect costs them. The moment you let it slide, you surrender the weapon. Never surrender it. Third, presence. Fear is not just in what you say. It is in how you stand, how you look, how you move. A steady gaze can cut deeper than words. A long silence can suffocate more than a speech. Train your body into stillness. Train your eyes into focus. Train your voice into steel. Presence itself becomes a weapon when sharpened correctly. Finally, mystery. Do not reveal everything. Do not let them read your depths. Fear is strongest when wrapped in uncertainty. If they cannot predict you, they cannot control you. If they cannot measure you, they cannot dismiss you. Become the storm on the horizon, the shadow in the corner, the silence in the room. Your unpredictability becomes your advantage. But here is the warning. Do not abuse this weapon. Fear is powerful, but it must be tempered with respect. If you inspire only fear without respect, they will eventually rise against you. But if your fear is rooted in composure, in presence, in controlled capability, they will respect you even as they fear you. That balance makes you untouchable. So understand this. Fear is not cruelty. Fear is not chaos. Fear is consequence. And consequence is the skeleton of respect. Without it, your words are hollow. With it, your silence is enough. Now, I give you a command. Comment below with a phrase that declares your weapon of fear. Not rage, not madness, but calm, cold consequence. Something that says, I am not to be crossed. I am not to be dismissed. I am not to be owned. Write it. Mark yourself with it. Let the world know that you are learning to wield the oldest weapon of power, the weapon of fear. Number 7. The psychology of power games. Power is never random. It is never accidental. It is played like a game, silent, brutal, relentless. And whether you realize it or not, you are already in it. Every conversation, every interaction, every decision, the game of power is happening around you. The only question is, are you playing or are you being played? Most men never realize the rules. They think life is about fairness, about honesty, about virtue. They believe if they work hard, stay humble, and treat others well, respect will follow. That is a comforting lie. The truth is darker. Respect is not handed to the virtuous. It is seized by the cunning, the ones who understand the game, who maneuver in shadows, who manipulate perception. These are the men who rise. Machiavelli called politics a game of appearances. Modern psychology calls it influence. I call it war disguised as conversation. Power games are played in whispers, in looks, in gestures, rarely in outright battles. They test who can stay calm, who can dominate the frame, who can plant ideas without seeming to. The weak man enters a room and reacts. The strong man enters a room and bends it to his rhythm. That is the essence of power psychology. Let me break this down. There are 3 levels of the game. Level 1, the visible moves. This is where most people operate. The shouting, the arguing, the obvious struggles for dominance. It's the man who tries too hard to prove himself, the boss who throws his weight around, the loud one at the table. These men mistake noise for control, but true power rarely resides here. Level 2, the subtle influence. Here, the players stop chasing attention and start directing it. They use silence instead of volume. They ask questions instead of boasting. They listen, but their silence shapes the room. They do not demand respect. They allow others to give it to them willingly without even realizing why. This is where the clever rise. Level 3. The invisible game. At this level, perception itself is the weapon. A glance that shifts tone, a pause that creates tension, a small withdrawal that makes others chase. These players do not need words. Their presence bends outcomes. They plant doubt without speaking. They inspire respect without effort. This is the game you must learn to play if you want to be untouchable. Dark psychology explains why this works. Humans are governed by unconscious triggers. They look for cues, status, confidence, control. Whoever controls the frame of interaction wins. The frame is the unspoken rule of who leads, who follows. If you let others dictate it, you lose. If you seize it, you dominate. And the frightening truth, most of the time, the frame is decided in the first seconds before a word is even spoken. This is why posture matters, why silence matters, why composure matters. You set the frame without words, and once it is set, others adapt to it automatically. If you stand calm, they become restless. If you remain still, they fidget. If you withhold words, they over-explain. Power games are won by letting others expose themselves, while you remain the steady axis around which they rotate. But here is where the Machiavellian edge comes in. You must not only play defense, you must play offense. You must learn to plant ideas, to bend perception, to move people without them knowing. Suggestion is stronger than command. Hinting is stronger than boasting. When you make others believe the idea was theirs, you control them completely. That is the invisible leash of power. History is full of men who mastered this. Caesar, Napoleon, even modern leaders, they understood that raw force builds fear, but psychology builds empires. Why? Because the mind is the battlefield. When you command perception, you command behavior. The one who controls the story controls the world. So how do you begin to master the psychology of power games? First, stop reacting. Every reaction is a surrender. When someone mocks you, don't respond. When they provoke you, don't flinch. Let them dance. Let them reveal themselves. The one who breaks silence first loses ground. Second, control your frame. Decide before you enter a room what energy you will project. Calm, cold, commanding. Once set, do not deviate. Others will bend to it. If you waver, they seize control. If you hold, they fall into orbit around you. Third, speak with precision. Do not drown others in words. The fewer you use, the heavier they become. A single statement delivered with calm finality outshines 1,000 desperate explanations. Power is not in the volume, it is in the weight. Fourth, withdraw strategically. Do not stay too long in any game. Leave before they are satisfied. Withdraw before they understand you. Scarcity builds mystique, and mystique builds respect. Absence is part of the game. Use it to your advantage. Finally, study people relentlessly. Observe what they fear, what they crave, what they cannot resist. Every person has a lever. Find it, and you control them. Hide yours, and no one controls you. This dual mastery, reading others while concealing yourself, is the mark of a true player of the power game. But remember this warning: power games are amoral. They do not care about your feelings. They do not reward your kindness. They are played whether you acknowledge them or not. You can pretend they don't exist, but that makes you prey. Or you can learn them, master them, and rise. The choice is yours. The truth is brutal. Respect does not come from fairness. It comes from dominance in the unspoken arenas of human interaction. It comes from mastering the game most men do not even know they are playing. It comes from walking into every room and knowing, I do not react, I do not explain, I do not bend. I set the frame, I bend them, I win the game. Now, I want you to declare yourself as a player of power. Comment below with a phrase that signals your readiness to master the game. A phrase that says, I do not play fair, I play to win. I bend the room, not the other way around. Write it, claim it, etch it into the psychology of your future. Because from this point forward, you will no longer be a pawn. You will be the one moving the pieces. Number 8, the discipline of ruthlessness. There comes a point in every man's rise where kindness no longer serves him, where patience turns to weakness, where mercy turns to chains. Respect, at its deepest root, is not built on smiles. It is built on boundaries enforced with iron, and this is where ruthlessness enters the code of power. But hear me clearly, ruthlessness does not mean cruelty for its own sake. It does not mean chaos, violence, or uncontrolled destruction. That is the work of undisciplined men who burn out quickly. True ruthlessness is precise, it is cold, it is controlled, it is the scalpel, not the hammer. It is discipline, sharpened into an edge that cuts without hesitation when the time comes. Machiavelli himself taught that rulers must learn to be both the fox and the lion to avoid traps, the lion to crush wolves. To be only merciful is to invite betrayal. To be only brutal is to invite revolt. The balance lies in disciplined ruthlessness, the ability to be merciful when it serves you, and merciless when it is required. Why is this necessary? Because the world does not respect men who always forgive. They exploit them. They do not respect men who never punish. They walk over them. Without ruthlessness, your words are empty. Without consequence, your boundaries are meaningless. Ruthlessness ensures that your respect is protected, not by request, but by fear of violation. Discipline is what separates a tyrant from a strategist. The ruthless man does not act out of emotion. He does not lash out in anger. He does not explode when insulted. That is weakness, disguised as strength. No, the ruthless man acts coldly, without passion, without hesitation, at the exact moment when the cost of disrespect must be enforced. His action is final, and it echoes. That is why it commands respect. Understand this. Every man is tested. Your friends will test your patience. Your enemies will test your strength. Your family may test your authority. If you fail to enforce consequences, you will be marked as weak. If you hesitate to draw lines, you will be trampled. Ruthlessness is the discipline to enforce limits with absolute conviction, no matter the cost. Dark psychology teaches that humans are conditioned by punishment and reward. If you reward bad behavior, they repeat it. If you punish it, they avoid it. Too many men reward disrespect by staying silent, by laughing it off, by pretending they are above it. They are not above it, they are beneath it. Ruthlessness is the refusal to reward weakness. It is the steel that cuts through the illusions of second chances. But discipline is the key. Uncontrolled ruthlessness makes you reckless. Disciplined ruthlessness makes you respected. The reckless man destroys everything, including himself. The disciplined man removes only what threatens his power. His ruthlessness is selective, targeted, devastating, and because it is so rare, it carries weight. The world knows, cross him, and there will be a price, always. Think of history's great rulers. They were not respected because they were always kind. They were respected because their kindness meant something, because it was not given freely. They were respected because their mercy was rare and their ruthlessness was decisive. When they forgave, it was seen as a gift. When they punished, it was seen as inevitable. That balance forged their authority. In your own life, ruthlessness must manifest in smaller, sharper ways, cutting off people who drain you, ending relationships that weaken you, walking away from opportunities that insult your value, enforcing boundaries without explaining them, saying no with finality. These are not acts of cruelty, they are acts of survival. They are how you train the world to respect your time, your energy, your presence. But here is the paradox. The more disciplined your ruthlessness, the less you will need to use it. Why? Because reputation travels faster than action. If the world knows you do not tolerate disrespect, they will avoid testing you. If the world knows your boundaries are final, they will adapt before they cross them. Ruthlessness builds a shadow, and that shadow walks ahead of you, enforcing respect before you even enter the room. Never forget, your life is a kingdom, and every kingdom must have walls. If the walls are weak, invaders pour in. If the walls are strong but never defended, enemies test them. But if the walls are strong, defended, and protected by ruthless consequence, the kingdom survives. That kingdom is your respect. That kingdom is your power. Protect it with discipline and you will remain untouchable. Some will call you cold. Some will call you harsh. Let them. Their opinions are meaningless. What matters is that they hesitate before crossing you. What matters is that they know you do not bow to pressure. What matters is that they fear losing your presence. That fear is not cruelty, it is order. And order is the backbone of respect. Now ask yourself, where have you allowed disrespect to go unpunished? Where have you been too forgiving, too lenient, too soft? Those moments weakened you. They trained others to believe you could be crossed without consequence. That ends now. Ruthlessness is not about destroying everything. It is about protecting what matters, your name, your presence, your law. And so, I leave you with this command. Comment below with a phrase that declares your discipline of ruthlessness. A phrase that says, "My boundaries are iron. My mercy is rare. My respect is earned through fire." Write it, claim it, and never again let the world believe you are too kind to defend your throne. Number 9. Becoming untouchable. Becoming untouchable is not a trick. It is not a single tactic, a single mask, or a single phrase. It is the combination of everything you've learned, woven into a way of being. Respect is not a moment. It is a state. And to hold it, you must transform yourself into something greater than a man with nothing. You must become a man with presence, silence, scarcity, distance, fear, and ruthless discipline. The weak man begs for respect. The untouchable man radiates it. The weak man explains himself endlessly. The untouchable man speaks rarely, and his silence weighs more than another man's speeches. The weak man fears losing approval. The untouchable man is feared because he approves of no one easily. This is what it means to embody Machiavelli's code of power. You make yourself scarce. You carry yourself with cold indifference. You wield silence as a weapon. You let fear enforce your boundaries. You practice ruthlessness with precision. You refuse to bend, and because of that, others bend to you. But understand this truth: the journey never ends. To remain untouchable, you must remain disciplined. Respect fades if you grow careless. Power rots if you reveal too much. You must wear your armor daily, the mask, the silence, the scarcity, the distance. This is not a performance, this is a lifestyle. This is who you become. And when you master this, you become the man others whisper about, the man whose absence is felt more than their presence, the man who does not chase, does not beg, does not bow, the man who is untouchable. Now I ask you, mark your transformation. Comment below with a phrase that declares you untouchable. A phrase that burns into the minds of those who read it. Something sharp, something cold, something final. And if this message struck you, if it awakened something in you, then don't let it end here. Like this video, subscribe to Sig-Rhythm, turn on notifications, because the world will try to drag you back into weakness. And here, you will return to sharpen your edge. Remember, respect is not given, it is taken, and from this day forward, you will never be touched again.